Disclaimer. Assume everything seen in the following film to be completely scripted, completely fake, genetically altered, computer generated, and/or enhanced by artificial intelligence for the safety of everyone involved, including you.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Waffly Good. Irrationally complains about his life. I gotta keep it kind of low right now for the first episode, sadly, because I'm on winter break. I'm home from college, and my family's asleep right now. My sleep schedule's absolutely destroyed, and due to their life, they just, they're awake at rational hours. But um, I wanted to take a minute to reflect. Well, let me put an image in your head right now, because I wish I was brave enough to show my face and dox myself and all these people I'm about to talk about because the vibe right now is kind of crazy, guys. I got the Christmas tree on. I'm sitting on the couch. I hope you guys can imagine this, right? Picture. I'm gonna lay out this picture for you. Christmas tree. It's like slow. It's like dimly lighting up the whole living room, right? I got a comfy little blanket on. My computer's off to the side with Audacity. I just have a blue snowball in my face, and I'm recording my thoughts. It's unfiltered, right? Um, but today I wanted to talk about well, not maybe, the worst semester of college I've had so far. And it's absolutely atrocious. Um, and so, I don't know. There's not many places to start, but I go to a decently sized school, right? It's respected. I'm going for an engineering degree. Um, but just recently, the program has just been atrocious. And recently, there's been bunch of problems with the school. I'm not really here to get into that, but it's just the whole thing's a scam, guys. I'm getting scammed every day. Yeah, I'm gonna get a degree. That will pay itself off. Yeah, it'll be a good job. But it's so many days I wake up and it's there's no reason for me to have the problems that I have. So many of the problems I have are completely avoidable if we had competent people in charge. If we had some person sit down and be like, how can we make things easier for these kids that spend thousands and thousands of dollars, right? But there's only so much you can. As a student, you can only go so broke, right? Whatever. But I'm here to tell you kids, college is a scam. Nobody cares about you in college. There's no avenues to get help. You'll get stuck. You'll be shoved in the rudder, and you'll raise your hand up for help because that's what they tell you to do. And they'll swat your hand away or cut it off or just pee on you while you're in the gutter. Um, and I want to tell some stories, right, from my previous year, not my year, my semester. And I could complain about so many things across the years that I've seen at college that have happened to me, but this semester alone has enough. So, first thing is, we have labs. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the process, but you have classes. There's different types of classes, right? You have lecture classes where you sit down in a lecture hall, listen to someone profess. You have labs, where you go to a lab, do lab work. It's different for each class. You have recitations. The recitations, it's more of a high school classroom setting. You have a TA, you ask questions, do some work. Those are freshman, sophomore stuff, recitations, but the labs and lectures follow you everywhere, right? And so we have these labs, and it's just they're absolutely atrocious. This is just the beginning, right? But I don't learn anything. We spend hours and hours and hours getting data, just hours and hours and hours. And I wish I was exaggerating. Getting this data, and then it's usually wrong because the lab is 50 years old. Not really, that's an exaggeration, but it's 50 years old. And then after we spent hours doing the data, we have to do hours on the lab report, and that's also atrocious. That's not fun at all. And then we turn it in, and then guess what? Yeah, the TA doesn't even read the lab report. We just get some random grade. And so, my first experience with it this year, um, it was it was a new setup. So I followed the rubric. I read through the rubric. I followed the rubric to a T, right? But it was kind of funky. It was set up weird, very different from previous years. Um, but I just followed it to a T. There wasn't specific sections for pre-lab data and then lab data like we had before. But whatever. I turn it in, and then I wait a week, and I get it back graded. And he's like, next time, do the pre-lab. And I was like, bro, what? I totally did that. And I check, and he took 20 points off for having no pre-lab data. But what I did was I put it in the pre-lab section, and then I checked the rubric, and oh, look at that, the rubric has been updated to the previous how the previous labs were. But I checked the date. The date it was uploaded was after the turn-in date. I'm like, what? Like, how do you even react to that? And so I didn't want to rewrite the whole report on this new rubric, and had the data he said I was missing, so I just told him where it was in the thing. And yeah, I got my credit back. And yeah, it's like you might think, oh, no big deal, but it's like every single year there's multiple events like this in labs that I have to like I turn something in and then I have to help the TAs grade me, it feels like. Or I have to correct them, or I have to, fight, and it's not really correct them. I have to fight for myself. I have to fight for my grade every single time after I turn something in, after I follow the rubric. And it's every single year. That's not even the big deal. That's not even the big deal. Um the biggest thing that happened to me was very like once a year I get like pretty sick. Like I guess freshman year, the whole like, freshers flu was going around, and I got like strep throat and a sinus infection at the same time. And I thought it was just a cold, so like I was like, I'm gonna tough it out like a real man. And I keep doing all this stuff. I keep like working out too, I think, which is just insane. And then I even go to chem lab, right? And I'm like coughing my lungs out. And chem not well, yeah, I was coughing my lungs out. I could barely stand. I was walking around. Well, not walking around. They made us stand in this chem lab, and I could not do that. I was so sick. And so I kept telling my lab partners I'm going to the bathroom, and I would just go sit in the hall for a couple minutes because the lab is over a couple hours, right? But yeah, I had pneumonia. That was not fun. This year, um, similar thing happened. I got really sick. Tried to brush it off as a cold, but then um, I missed this class because I was tired and slept in. And I was like, yo, and there was a quiz in this class. And I texted, not texted, I emailed the teacher. I was like, yo, I'm sick. I missed class. Can I make up the quiz? And he's like, according to university policy, you need a university accepted excuse. And I was like, okay, whatever, because I mean, it is his right to do that, right? But most other professors don't care, but to each their own, and it is his right to do that. So I'm like, cool. And I'm like, okay. And then, um, the next day, I think it was the day after he sent that. I don't really know. But then I was in lab and I was even sicker, right? And so I was like, okay, he wants doctor's note. I might as well go into the clinic. And so I schedule a doctor's appointment for the next day, and then I email him back and I'm like, okay, if I go get a doctor's note, will I be able to retake this quiz? And he doesn't respond at all. But anyways, I go to the doctor the next day, and by this point, this is like Friday, I'm just absolutely dead. I woke up, I felt like a zombie. I look in the mirror, I'm like pale. I woke up sweaty. I feel like my eyes are sunken in, right? I'm getting shivers. It's really bad. I'm starting to cough. And so I stumble over to the clinic, right? Because I had to walk, right? And the walking just sucked. And then I show up and I'm like, yo, what's up? I have a doctor's appointment for today, right? And the lady goes, clickety clack, what's your name? Blah, 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 clickety clack. We don't have you in today. And I was like, what? And I'm like coughing and I'm like leaning on the table, because I'm just exhausted. And she's like, yeah, looks like you scheduled it for next week. And I was like, oh man, that sucks. Not really. I didn't say much. I just kind of looked at her and I was like, is there anything open today? Right? And she was like, yeah, just hold on a minute. And she went clickety clack, right? And then, um, she's like, they're waiting for you now. And I'm like, that's just fantastic, right? What a nice girl. So I thanked her. And I went in and they're like, what's up? And I was like, what's up? I'm not feeling good. They're like, first nurse. And then I wait a bit and like this nurse practitioner comes in. I couldn't get the real doctor, which no complaints because that's another thing about this. I mean, I'll save that for another thing, but I hate the clinic doctor we have. I absolutely hate him. But because it was like, on the spot, I got a nurse practitioner. He comes in, he's a lot younger, he's chill, right? And he's like, what's up? And I'm like, yo, I have this bad cold and I need a doctor's note, um, because this professor, wants it so I can retake this quiz that I missed. And he was like, okay, that's true, that's chill, that's cool. He even laughed too, because I guess it's pretty funny, right? But he's like, I got to do my due diligence. Let me check you out. So I sit on the table, does all the tests, and he starts listening to my lungs, right? I remember when I had pneumonia, the doctor kept going over the same place again when he was listening to my lungs. And I was like, that cannot be good. And this dude, he starts doing the same thing. He starts listening to this one spot over and over. And I notice I'm like, because this is actually like the first time in the day I started taking deep breaths. And it kind of sounds like a train whistle. I don't really know how to like, it was like, but it was more echoey. I don't really know. And I'm like, that's probably not good. And he's like, yeah, your lungs do not sound good at all. And I was like, that's probably not good. And he's like, no. And he's like, I'm going to diagnose you with bronchitis. You got a Z pack. And well, yeah, he just gave me all the meds and stuff. And I was like, okay. I was kind of relieved because the cold really was, beating me up. And now I have an excuse to miss everything, right? Written in stone. And so I just went home, skipped my classes, text professors. I did get an extension on homework that night because I walked home again instead of like taking a bus or something. And that made my fever because I started getting a fever and that made it just super, super bad. And so I just texted him and I was like, yo, can I please get an extension? I'm like dying here. Um, he was like, yeah, it's chill. That was a different professor. And then same thing for this lab. I was like, yo, can I get an extension? This is like my one of the first, well, not one of the first, but like one of the only extensions I've asked for. Um, these few because it was beating me up. Bronchitis is no joke, guys. It sucked. Um, and then yeah, whatever. And then, but these next two, it was midterms after that. These next 2 weeks, and so I'm going through, and I start to realize that um I need to study more. And so I do what any man would do in my position. And I start pulling all-nighters, studying. I was honestly pushing my body to the limits. It kind of sucked. I don't think I've ever pushed myself that hard while sick. It was very non-ideal, very painful, very uncomfortable. I just remember being exhausted, sitting at the table and forcing myself to do more, chugging a Celsius, anything. And then I would get in bed and I'd just be shivering and shivering and shivering. Um, I don't know. I don't need a pity party. I chose to do that. I didn't have to do that, but I just really didn't want to push the test any further, right? But I take all my tests. I ace all of them, as a man should. And then, so we're hitting the exact 2 week mark from when I, first went in, and I'm still pretty sick. And it's probably from like the all-nighters I was pulling. I was getting good sleep on the weekend, but I was sleeping like literally all weekend, and I think I was like catching up, um, from it, but whatever. It's 2 weeks later on this Friday, right? And I sit down to do this assignment, and it's like, I'm like trying to do it, and my brain is so fuzzy. I just can't focus on it at all. It's a programming assignment, for that one class who wanted the quiz, who wanted the doctor's note. And by the way, he never responded about about me retaking the quiz, which I mean, go him, I guess. Um, but 3 p.m., due that night, I start the assignment. My brain's too fuzzy. I'm like, I'm dead. I just need to nap and then I'll finish this up. So I go home, lay down. I wake up at 9 p.m. Non ideal, not what I wanted. But I'm like, whatever. I'll just rush it. Start rushing through, rushing through. I work on it all the way till midnight and I just do not get it done. I do not get it done. And I was very upset because I've been pushing myself so, so hard. And this is like one of the times where like it caught up and I just couldn't. And like my brain was fuzzy. I had a Celsius like right before I started and it just was not enough. But I'm like, whatever. I was like, after getting upset, I realized I'm pushing myself hard. I have bronchitis. I probably should be getting better by now, but I'm not. And I'm just pushing myself too hard. I need to rest. So I go to bed. I wake up the next day. I explain to the professor, I didn't put in this, but I aced his test. And while I took the test, I sat right in front of him, coughing the entire time, right? And I still aced it. Um, and but whatever. And so I was like, I kind of like this guy's class. I like the material. And I was like, I'm going to be very honest with him. I'm going to be very open. Yeah, I had time to do it before. I probably had enough time, but I've been trying to get ahead in all these classes because I'm sick. Um, I've been studying a lot. I haven't missed any other assignments since the day, I found out I had bronchitis, right? I haven't missed any assignments, didn't miss any tests. I've been doing all the work. I've been showing up to his class. I've been skipping every other class, but I've been showing up to his class because he has like in-class quizzes. Um, and and so that sucked, right? But I was like, I explained all that. I was like, I respect your class. I respect the work you do. I don't beg for extensions. That's not, who I am. Um, and I really put myself out there in this email. Okay. And then a week goes by. Well, not a week. It takes like 5 days. I sent that on a Saturday. It takes him like 5 days to respond. He responds on like a Wednesday or something. And he's like, hello, mister. I don't know. There was an M dash, and I'm just 99% sure it was ChatGPT. And he was like, unfortunately, according to university policy, because there were 2 weeks between your doctor's note and the assignment, I cannot grant you an extension. And like all I needed was like 12 hours to finish it. That's all I needed. And he's like, I highly suggest you do the work though, because blah 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 helps you learn, whatever. I'm like, I was honestly mad. Um, but I was like, whatever. It's university policy. He doesn't want to break it. He's made that clear. But if the problem is the time between the doctor's note and the assignment, I'm just going to ask the clinic for another one. I'll tell them, yeah, I've been pushing myself too hard. Could you write a doctor's note, explaining I'm still very sick and it affects my ability to do schoolwork. And so I send them a message, and then the nurse practitioner, he responds to me. He's like, "Hey, yeah, sorry, but we're just explicitly not allowed to write anything that could ever be viewed in any way as an excuse for a student." And I'm like, "What? Like, what's the point of having a clinic on campus then?" I didn't say that, of course, but he's like, because I explained that this I needed it for the assignment, and but he's like, "Go to the student advocacy board. They should be able to help you." And so I'm like, "Okay, cool. I guess this is whatever." I set up a meeting with the student advocacy board, whatever that means. I mean, I guess I find out what it means. And I just talked to some HR girl on Zoom, HR language all day long. Um, and all she says is basically, well, I explain the situation. I give her all the documentation, and she's like, "Yeah, you've done a really great job. But we're really only for chronic illnesses." Now, I was like, I can't even understand the logic behind that. Like, you're a student advocacy board, but she's like, "What we could do is talk to him for you." And I was like, well, I mean, I can talk to him. What are you going to say that I'm not? Like, you're going to put in some HR language? Can you threaten him? Is that what you're offering to do? Maybe that's what she was offering to do. That's not how I took it. And so I was very upset with that meeting. But they did give me a very good piece of information. And that piece of information was he completely either lied or was just utterly mistaken about university policy. Because there's no university policy that says, the length between the doctor's note and the assignment means anything. And so I was so upset by that because I try to go to him. I put myself out there, right? Because I don't really talk to my professors. And I was like, maybe I should start doing that. Put myself out there, and he's just a jerk, right? But I understand. Maybe he's not being a jerk. Maybe he's just very hung up on university policy. I go to the clinic. Turns out this clinic that I probably pay a ton of money for, they actually can't write me any excuses for school. And so after going to them, I go to the student advocacy board, who, yeah, I probably pay for. Um, and then I go to the student advocacy board, and there's nothing they can do. They can talk to him. I can talk to him. I could have a friend talk to him. I don't want to have a friend talk to him. I could have anyone talk to him. What are you going to talk to him for? I need to talk to him. It's between me and him. And I guess it's for like if they have beef or something, like a student has beef with something and they want it in paper. But that's not where we were, I guess. And maybe we were there, and I should have taken them up on that. I don't know. Um, but so I sat down. I was very angry, and so I was like, "Let me chill out. I need to think this through. I need to think the best decision." And so I basically came to the conclusion, right, that if I fight this, no one in the university is going to be on my side. There's no board, there's no one's going to be there to help me. They're always going to side with him. It doesn't matter what's on paper or not because I have everything on paper. I have him heavily implying that it was university policy, that he could reject it. And I showed it to apparently an official and a student, not a student, but a university official, and there's nothing they did. And so I figured no one's going to be on my side if I try to fight this guy any further. And if I try to fight him further, no one's going to be on my side. I'll lose, and then he'll retaliate against me in a class it's notoriously very, very, very hard. So I chose to keep my head down and just ace the rest of the tests and hope that he curves it strong enough. And I haven't got the curve back yet. And he does another thing he does. He calls it a holistic curve, apparently. But basically, I don't know what happens. I don't know if I'll ever know what happens. I think what happens is the people at the top barely get curved. People in the middle get curved a lot, and the people down low get curved some. I think it just means it's an uneven curve, if that's even allowed. I don't know. But then later, I'm in lab and I'm complaining to a friend about this, and he's like, "That was you?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "I was in his office hours once, and he was complaining about a student who was asking for sympathy, begging for sympathy with a doctor's note." And I was like, "Dog, there's no way." And so, yeah, he was even complaining to students about me putting myself out there. So I'm probably never, ever going to try to become friends with a professor again. Maybe I just got unlucky, chose the wrong guy. If there's a professor that's cool enough, shows he's cool enough, yeah, I'll try to talk to him. But that just absolutely, I don't know, like, why? So many questions. But yeah, and I chose to not even pursue that any because even though he was complaining enough for it to be identifiable, there's just no one's going to be on my side while I fight him. And so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I'm paying to be treated like this, guys. Chat, I'm paying them thousands of dollars to treat me like this. That's the crazy, absurd part. And I know this isn't even the end of it. I still have a year more of this. That's insane. And I know I'm going to have something like this in the future. And so, yeah, that's that. And I mean, there's a whole bunch of other stories about this guy. He's a jerk. Um, and I'm not the only student he has misrepresented policy to. There's another instance, but I won't get into that. There's probably something else. It's just that's insane. But I did really good on his tests. I would have gotten like a super score grade if I was allowed to turn in that assignment because everything else I did really, really good in. The material was fun, but he just after a while I realized his lecture really isn't that good at all. And he has this book, the not his book, but the person who taught it before him wrote the textbook, and he has a bunch of YouTube videos, and it's like 100 million times better, right? And so that's just how I learned. I learned through the textbook. I learned through the YouTube videos. I learned online, and it did me wonders. And I never paid attention in class after he rejected my doctor's note. Never once paid attention in lecture, and was doing top scores in the class. So yeah, I probably got something wrong during that whole rant, but that's the main idea. I tried to be very. I mean, there's things I'm more sure about that I said I wasn't because I just But for legal reasons, everything here is an opinion. Although I have a lot of evidence, but for it, I don't know what I should say or what I shouldn't say. But everything I said here, I have evidence for. And if I don't have it, well, I have written evidence for most of it, except for the guy who said I don't have written evidence of him like complaining about me begging for sympathy from a doctor's note. But I mean, maybe the guy wants to get on the mic and talk about it. But yeah, that's that was my semester so far. It was and that was only one of the bad classes. We had I don't even want to get into it. Um, Also, the labs are only 1 credit hour. We spent a majority of our time working on these labs throughout the week, and they're 1 credit hour compared to the lectures, which are 3 credit hours. Just ridiculous all around. Um, yeah, this semester just melted my brain, right? I've been on winter break. I've been playing Minecraft. I've been playing video games. It's just been healing me. It's been healing my soul, healing my gray matter in my brain. I can feel it all just coming back together. Um, yeah. Um, but I would like to end this video saying that honestly, I'm grateful. These are the problems I have in my life. I'm glad, knock on wood here, but I'm glad that I'm just not like, well, okay, let me restate. I'm grateful that I'm in a position where these are the problems I have in my life. Even being dead broke, right? I'm dead broke. Um, I'm getting beat up at school, but I could have it much worse off. Um, yeah, very grateful, very grateful. Even though that sucked, it totally sucked, but I could be in a much worse spot. And yeah, there's so many other things I could complain about. Um, yeah, thanks for listening, guys. If we get 4 likes on this, I will spend 45 minutes complaining about YouTube ads because that's what's next on the list. Hopefully my whatever gameplay, I'm probably going to put Minecraft gameplay in the back. Um, Hopefully that was satisfactory enough. Goodbye, team.